There you are, standing in the gym, getting ready for PE class, and the teacher tells you that today you're playing dodgeball.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're pumped. You're excited, right? Dodgeball, who doesn't love dodgeball? So, everyone likes dodgeball in their own way. You'll learn. So, the teacher has you line up right down the middle of the gym, right, and then starts dividing you from your friends. Right, remember, you're on team 1, you're on team 2, you're on team 1, you're on team 2, you're on team 1, you're on team 2, right? That's how it works. And as you look around the gym, you're excited to get started, and then you realize who's on your team. So standing on your team with you is, there's one of the smaller kids. And then there's that one kid who's terrified of dodgeball and terrified of getting hit by a ball. They're on your team too. And then the other kid who just doesn't want to play dodgeball is on your team. And you're like, oh no. This isn't going to work out as well as I thought. But you're still motivated, right? You're still going to win. You're going to play your best. So, your gym teacher lines up the dodgeball up and down the middle of the court and tells everyone to line up on the back wall, blows the whistle, says go! So you see everyone running to the center to get a dodgeball, grab one, pull it back for their team. And as you're playing, you're looking around and you're noticing that one by one, your team is getting a little smaller than the other team. People are getting out. The other team's doing a lot better than you guys. So you're getting nervous. Till finally, you're like, I gotta do something about this. So you pick up a dodgeball and you wind back and chuck it as hard as you can across the gym. And it's whirling straight through the air at one of the kids on the other team. And he grabs it. You're out. Then you stand on the sidelines. You have nothing you can do now except for yell, catch a ball! Get thrown back in! But that only goes so far until your team's out. You lost the first game. But then the teacher's like, all right, let's line up, let's do a second game. So everyone lines up, gets ready for the second game, you're pumped, you're like, okay, this time we're going to win. We can't lose 2 games in a row. Right? So you're all lined up, teacher blows the whistle, you all rush to the middle, and this time you're more determined. You run in the middle, you just grab as many dodgeballs as you can and hoard them back to the rest of your team. And then you start really playing. Like you're chucking dodgeballs, you're getting people out, the teams are kind of sticking around a similar number, about the same amount of people are getting out on both teams, and then all of a sudden, you just feel it. Whack! Ball hits you in the leg. You're like, oh, ow. So you have to go stand on the sidelines again. Nothing else you can do except say, catch a ball! So finally you look out and realize your team lost the second game of dodgeball. Coach is like, all right, we got time for one more game. One more game of dodgeball. So he lines everyone up, puts the balls out in the middle, blows the whistle, go! And this time you're like, okay, I'm not losing every game. I'm not losing every game of dodgeball. I'm going to jump in and play. So you're whipping balls across the gym like you've never done before. You're dodging dodgeballs like a ninja master, like from the Matrix or something. Like a dodgeball's coming at you, and it just barely misses you. And then it gets down to 2 people. You're left on your team. There's 1 kid left on the other team. And you see them holding a dodgeball, just staring at you in the eyes. They pull their arm back and they throw the ball as hard as they can, but you see it coming, right? So you dodge that ball like you've never dodged a kickball in your life. And it just barely misses you. You're good. But then, you hear some words echo through the gym that you aren't too happy about. I hit you! Kid on the other team lied and yelled, I hit you! And the teacher turns around looking back at the gym, something else was taking his attention. He missed it. How are you feeling right now? Yeah, you're a little mad. Maybe a little hurt, a little sad, angry. I want us to sit in this emotion about being lied about with dodgeball for a minute, okay? As we open our Bibles and our notebooks to Acts chapter 18. So, in your notebooks today, I want to make sure we're keeping our notebooks, not passing them around. Open up to Acts chapter 18, and at the top of your notebook, write down on the next blank page, Acts 18. And then underneath that, I want you to write this question. How should I respond to conflict? How should I respond to conflict? So the Apostle Paul had a very similar feeling as he's traveling away from Athens to the city of Corinth. The Corinthians are there. Now, Corinth is a little different than Athens, where Paul just was. In fact, in Athens, Paul just finished preaching what was one of his most popular sermons currently, but back then he probably perceived it as a little bit of a failure. Because in Athens, it was actually the first city that Paul taught in where he didn't end up starting a new church. Not enough people got saved to really start a new church. So Paul probably was pretty beat. He was pretty upset and angry and mad and hurt that he got driven out of another city and wasn't even able to finish what he wanted to do there. So he goes to Corinth. Now, you know how cities have like a thing about them that's like, oh, this is a popular thing about the city? Like Chicago is known for what? That's Detroit. Detroit is Car City. Chicago is deep dish pizza. I heard the Windy City as well. Yeah. What about, do you guys know Traverse City? You know what that's?
Cherry
Festival.
Yeah, Cherry Festival is known as the cherry capital of the world. Grand Rapids used to have its own. Well, now it's Beer City, but it used to be Furniture City. So Grand Rapids used to be famous for making furniture. Yeah. Corinth had their own little tagline like that. It was known in Corinth as the sinful city. This was a pretty sinful place. Like to the point where if you met someone from Corinth somewhere else in the world at this time, you would just think, oh, that's probably a pretty bad person because they're from Corinth. So Paul's going to this new city, and it's known for being a sinful city, and the first thing he does is the same thing that he does in every new city, which he goes to where? The synagogue. It's like the church for the Jews. He goes to the synagogue in Corinth, and the synagogue in Corinth was a little bit different. There was a section in the front that was a big section for all the Jews, the ethnic Jews, people who were born into Jewish families, and then there was a section in the back for Gentiles who believe in the Jewish God and the Jewish law, but they weren't born Jewish. So they believed it, but they weren't born it. So there's a section for both of these people in the synagogue here. And so Paul goes in to preach to the Jew first, and then to the Greek. And as he's doing this, the Jews and the Gentiles in the synagogue get really mad at Paul. Like they tell Paul, we want to kill you now because we believe in this law and you're telling us that this law has been fulfilled and that the Messiah is coming. We're not buying it. We want to kill you now. And Paul got mad. He actually shook his garments and says, your blood be on your own heads. I am clean. From now on, I'm going to the Gentiles. He was so mad at the Jews in the synagogue for rejecting their Messiah that he's like, I'm done, I'm out. Your blood be on your own heads, but I'm clean. I'm going to the Gentiles. And so he walks outside and goes next door to this guy named Justus's house. His house shares a wall with the synagogue. It's right next door. And he's showing physically, I'm going to the Gentiles, and is saying verbally, I'm going to the Gentiles. I'm done. So that's what he does. He goes to the Gentiles. Now at this point, things are scary for Paul. Because he just changed his entire method Like, he had a system in place. You go to the new city, you go to the synagogue, you convert a bunch of Jews, they believe in their Messiah, and then you can go and share that message with the Gentiles. He had a method, and all of a sudden his method gets flipped upside down. He's told you, or he's telling the Jews, I can't do this. I can't preach to you guys. You're not listening. You're not seeing it. So he's probably pretty discouraged. I'm sure he's laying in bed that night thinking, what if this doesn't work out? But then, this guy named Crispus shows up. And Crispus was the leader of that synagogue. And Crispus tells Paul, hey, I believe your message. I've spent my life studying these scriptures. And what you say makes sense. I can see this Messiah coming and fulfilling the law, like you said. So, Crispus ends up believing and getting baptized. And the rest of his family ends up believing and getting baptized. So that's a little bit encouraging, but again, it's only one family. Paul's used to thousands of people getting converted. This is like maybe 5 or 6. But then that night, as Paul was sleeping, Jesus appeared to him in a vision. And Jesus told Paul, do not be afraid any longer, but go on speaking, and do not be silent, for I am with you. And no man will attack you in order to harm you, for I have many people in this city. What's Jesus talking about? You have many people in this city? There's like, what, 8 right now? That's not many. That's like, I can count on both my hands, 8. What's Jesus talking about here? Yeah?
I think, it's kind of in the Bible, it said that he like see the future. So maybe he could see like other people believing in him.
Yes. That's exactly it. Jesus can see through all time, and he's telling Paul, there are going to be a bunch of Christians that are going to come out of the city. Just keep preaching. Now that is encouraging. So Paul is now a little encouraged, and he's going to see Jesus fulfill this promise, that there will be lots of people that will believe. So, the next, starting in verse 12. Paul ended up staying for 1.5 years in Corinth, preaching and teaching, and a lot of people were getting converted, which is great. But that also started firing up the Jews again in Corinth, and they were like, not a fan of this. We need to show Paul that we won't stand for him coming in and converting everyone from Judaism. So they decided we're going to bring him to this guy named Gallio. And Gallio is the representative of the Roman government. So he's kind of like the governor or like really important mayor of Corinth. And so the Jews bring Paul to him, and they're like, hey, this guy is preaching that our law is fulfilled, but our law is not fulfilled, and so we don't like him. Can you kick him out, or kill him, or get rid of him for us? And Gallio has a very interesting response to the Jews. He says, if it were a matter of wrong, or of a vicious crime, it would be reasonable for me to put up with you. But these are questions about words and names of your own law. Look after yourselves. I'm unwilling to judge on these matters. Basically, Gallio's response is, stop tattling on this guy, figure it out on yourself, or on your own. I'm not going to deal with this. So that's Gallio's response. But then, the Jews were still really mad, and they figure, well, the next person who would help us is the leader of our synagogue. So they got a new leader of their synagogue after the last one converted to Christianity, and they took him out in the street and beat him up. Because they're like, you're going to do something about this. Things got violent, fast. But because of how harsh this reaction is, what Paul ends up doing is, Paul ends up saying, you know what, it's been a good 1.5 years, but I'm going to leave. So he ends up going back to Jerusalem and then Antioch to be ready for his 3rd missionary journey. So, really quick, let's jump back into this dodgeball situation that we were talking about at the beginning. Okay? You're being lied to about getting hit when you know you didn't get hit. there's a few different ways that you could respond to this situation, right? We already felt that emotion. We're angry, we're mad, we're upset. I mean, you could go through and just like pop all the dodgeballs and be like, no one's playing anymore, we're done, right? You could do that. You could go full-on rage monster and like break the gym.
You could come back at night and shut down all the power.
Yeah, you can come back at night and shut down the power at school. You could do something like that. And then you could prove your point, like I was right. But I think Paul is getting at something here. It's not always right for us to try to get even. We're not called to get even as Christians. We're actually called to be at peace with all men. And in this situation, I mean, there are some situations where Paul fights back. But in this situation, Paul goes, this is getting out of hand. I need to back down, and I need to move on. And that's what Paul ended up doing, backing down and moving on. So sometimes when we're confronted with conflict, it's better for us to, instead of engage and fight, to step back, regroup, think about it, and find a better way to move forward. And if we want to take time to diffuse these conflicts instead of diving into them, what we end up doing is glorifying God. I mean, God is gracious and kind and merciful. And if Christians are known as being gracious and kind and merciful, people are going to look at us and go, man, they live out their faith. They look like the God they worship. And what that's going to do in return is give God much glory. So that's going to be our prayer. My prayer for you guys this week is that you can glorify God in the face of conflict by being peaceable, by being merciful and gracious, by finding ways that you can step down and diffuse conflict instead of diving into it. So I'm going to pray that for us real quick, and then we'll divide into our small groups. Dear Lord, we just pray that you would give us the ability to diffuse conflict. It's not our nature. We want to fight back. We want to get even. But I just pray that you would help give us the power to refrain, to stand back and say, you know what, this isn't how God wants me to act in this moment. So I just pray that you would give us the ability to act in the way that you want us to. I pray that over all these students. In your name, amen.